What's up, Voicey veterans? Welcome to the evening show. I'm your host, Captain Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDontWorkHereLady. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story was called, I already said I don't work for you. Leave me be. I live in Rio de Janeiro and had to sort some business out downtown, and I was already making my way back home when I get approached by what I assumed was an American tourist. I think he must be American mostly because of his accent and how incredibly loud he was. Here's the cast. Hey T, not the alien, just an entitled tourist. And me. Hey you kid, I need to go back to the hotel. Drive me back there now. I noticed he was a tourist. I don't work for any hotels, and it's quite dangerous to ask strangers on the street of a foreign country to take you anywhere. There's an information counter in this building where they may help you. No, I know you work for the redacted hotel, and I'll have your head if you don't take me back there this instant. Sorry, but I already said I don't work for any hotels or for you. Excuse me. I made my way back to the metro station only to find out that the tourist followed me there and he was mad. I sprinted to the turnstile, used my pass to get through it, and stopped to watch what happened to the tourist from the other side. He stopped chasing me right after I got through the turnstile and was gesturing obscenities at me. And while he was doing so, he left his backpack on the floor. And in a godly act of instant karma, someone stole his backpack. I burst out laughing and get on the train and make my way home without any other incidents. Alright, that story put a very funny image in my head. Just imagine this Brazilian dude running through the subway. Then there's this fat American tourist, and let's be real, he's probably fat because, you know, Americans and rudeness and obesity. Anyways, a fat American guy gets his backpack stolen after flipping some dude off. Funny. This story was called, Why yes, I will come work for you for near slave wages, neighbor. Let me just get my things. Yesterday, our community had a cleanup day. We've had some problems recently with people trashing the playgrounds, leaving garbage along the streets, and just in general not being great neighbors. So, to counteract that a bit, the neighborhood association organized a day to clean up those areas. There have been emails and flyers about the day for months. Everyone who volunteered had a job. Mine happened to be helping pull out and replant some plants that had been destroyed. My husband was on the same team. My team members and I had been at it for about an hour or so when a guy pulls up in a truck. We'll call him Raiders fan because he's an Oakland Raiders fan. Anyway, Raiders fan pulls up and yells out the window to my husband and the guy helping him. Hubby is my husband. Guy helping him is nice guy because he's nice. Now, keep in mind, we sort of know Raiders fan. We're not friends, but we know him enough to chat when we're out for walks and stuff. He knows where my husband works and what he does. Not today though. Today, he thinks my husband and the rest of us are landscapers or day laborers or something. And scene. I'm looking for some people to come do some landscaping work around my house. I'm offering $7 an hour. Can you spare anyone? What? I need some help around my house. Can anyone on your crew help me? I mean, they can come after they clock out if you can't spare them, and they want to make some extra money today. We're actually not a work crew. We're here for the community cleanup day. You should have received a flyer about it a couple of weeks ago. Uh-huh. So is this like a prison thing? Where you have to come do community service? No, this is a community service project organized by the neighborhood association. You're welcome to join us if you'd like to help. At that point, Raiders fan looked at nice guy like he had two heads and said, Why the front door would I do that? This isn't my job. I think at that point, the look on my husband's face made him really look at him. And he realized he'd been talking to his neighbors and not some random landscaping crew he can be abusive to. He suddenly laughed and said, just kidding, I'm very busy today. Thanks for helping out. Then he sped off. Let me just unpack this. 1. 2. $7 an hour to work on landscaping projects in the hot sun? You can work in the air-conditioned comfort of any fast food restaurant for more money than that. There are people all over the community today working, and there are people literally 20 feet from us, handing out water and getting lunch ready. I'm seriously worried about his eyes because he'd have to be blind to not realize it's a community event. Not to mention the fact that there are children running around and helping, and he thinks we're convicted criminals doing community service? Sure. Little 7-year-old Timmy over there robbed a liquor store and was lucky enough to get community service. Raiders fan. Idiot! This story was called "Entitled Parents Shouldn't Bring Small Children on Haunted Hayrides and Expect Others to Calm Their Kids Down." This happened about a year or two ago. I used to live in a community that sometimes one could get signed up for events that a group of people would go on together. And during the Halloween season, several of us wanted to go on a hayride, though I am not close to any of them. Upon getting there, it is a pretty normal trip. We had a group leader who was in charge of tickets. We had someone in charge of snacks and such, and somehow I ended up being in charge of calming people down if they got too scared. There was this one girl who lived next door to me and wanted to go, but was a huge chicken, so she was already clutching my arm, scared. I would pat her head and say soothing things and pretty much explain what all the scary things were or pretty much deny that they were there for her. This calmed her down, but yeah, she was still clutching my arm. This continued on to the hayride. I was trying to calm her down as she was already spooked and complimented her for trying so hard to learn about something new. Seriously, this girl had no clue about hayrides and wanted to know because people kept raving about them. She only stopped when we saw a young woman and man get onto the hayride with children that were clearly too young for it. For crying out loud, she was breastfeeding the smallest one while we waited for the ride to start. The family sat next to me near the front of the hayride. This was a seating tactic, since less scares stick around the front part. Yes, you get scared first, but if you have a good eye, you can spot the scares before they happen. So I looked at the small children and said, "Hello, how old are you two? Are you excited? Do you watch horror?" I asked, trying to gauge their possible fear level, since what scared me more was if I was going to be with constant screamers. The girls smiled. "I'm 5, said the smaller of the two first. "I am 8. Mommy said we were strong kids," said the bigger of the two. The mother and father were not paying attention to their kids at all and were talking about the ride to each other. I sighed, knowing I was not going to have a fun ride. I already had to calm down one person. I was now worried I would have to calm down more. My neighbor clung to my arm, whispering her fears in my ears as the hayride shook about going down the path. We came to the person who told us about the ride and its rules. I felt small hands creeping onto my other arm and one of my legs. I sighed. This was my fate. There was nothing scary yet, and now 3 people were clinging to me, scared. Why? I don't know. I explained to them that the person was not going to do anything to them. After the first introduction, the hayride really started. Whoosh! Flames from the first scare part. A trio of screams as I became sandwiched between 3 people clinging to me as they screamed. I reassured them and sighed. The 8-year-old was clinging to my arm. "Excuse me, if you're gonna cling to me, can I have my one arm free? You can grab my waist or my jacket or even my leg. I just need to be able to signal to the staff if you or the others are too scared to scare." I would tell her, but she hasn't let go even when I did tell her, I said to the kid. The girl grabbed the waistband of my jacket and curled up under my arm as her sister now climbed onto my lap, hiding her face in my chest. I waved to the parents. "Your children are scared. You want to do something about it?" I called over to them. I did this a few times during the calmer moments, but when there were scares, I was calming down the 3 females clinging to me, 2 of which were kids that I didn't know, and the other my full-grown adult neighbor. The parents ignored me each time I tried to get their attention, so I gave up after a while and focused on the fact that the girls clinging to me were terrified. I did each of my tricks to calm down the trio. I spoke kindly and softly, I explained things and even told them when not to look. When scariers jumped onto the hayride, I would give them the no scare signal which I had asked one of the ride operators about beforehand. They were very nice and understanding. I even acted scared with them so they didn't feel foolish. Got to say, it was exhausting and not fun. The hayride ended after an hour or so. Not sure. It felt like forever to me. The people started getting off. That was when the parents noticed their kids at last. "Kids, you can let go of the worker. The hayride is done. Did you have fun with the nice Scaremaster lady?" said the father. The girls let me go and thanked me. "Excuse me? What? I don't work here," I said, but the father and mother were not listening. They were already walking off with their kids who were waving bye to me. I had no idea what they were thinking. I struggled to get off as my neighbor was still clinging on to me, crying. I'm not sure how she got more scared than the kids and was still scared. An employee asked me how the ride was as I got off. Apparently I work here, so it sucked. I didn't get to enjoy it at all thanks to... I started. I'm glad you had a great time, said the employee before they went to ask another person what they thought. My neighbor and I rejoined the group from before. Didn't know you were meeting friends, you should have told us, said the leader of the group. I wasn't. They thought I worked here. Can we go home now? I asked, more tired than I should have been. When I got home, I found marks on my arms and legs and torso from the trio clinging to me too hard. In the end, no one really listened to me, and I didn't get to enjoy anything. So yeah, next time I am going with a friend only. That's quite the cute little story. Props to the Redditor there for, keeping their cool and, being a good sport about it. But yeah, please don't bring your kids on anything scary at all, because it just ruins it for everyone, including yourself. So that's some food for thought. Alright, this story was called, I'm not a doctor, I'm a sales agent. So here's some backstory. I actually have my education, training, and most of my work experience in English, both literature and language teaching. Despite this, I somehow found myself working for a rather famous ski resort, much to my Southern California native horror. I grew up in both Los Angeles and San Diego. I can handle the cold. Negative 30 degrees Celsius is the lowest I've been in, whatever that is in Fahrenheit. I was in Finland at the time. Anyway, I learned to despise snow while working at the ski resort. 6 solid months of snow will do that to a person. I love my former coworkers and bosses. I even kinda like the company. I loved most of my customers, but that 5%, man. I have a few customers I keep near and dear to my heart to remind myself not everyone's terrible. I have a ton of stories about entitled customers or entitled parents, both from my professional and personal lives. But I also have a ton of fantastic stories of wonderful people. Honestly, I'm not sure if this belongs here, but I couldn't find anywhere else that quite fit either. The main point is that it's not my job. I don't work at the hospital. Go to the hospital for your medical emergencies. Alright, this particular story involves me, my supervisor, injured skier's friend, random rude dude in his late 20s or early 30s. For liability reasons, at the beginning of the season, all of us in the ticket office weren't allowed to give out band-aids. Even if I were a doctor, since I wasn't hired as a doctor and my job didn't include medical anything, I wouldn't have been able to do anything medical. They did get more lenient on the band-aids, and only the band-aids, later on in the season. Only Ski Patrol was allowed to do anything medical, unless it was something like CPR. Then we became bystanders, allowed to do something. I wasn't even supposed to call Ski Patrol once the injured party was in my lobby, since their jurisdiction ends off the snow. You only need to be told off or yelled at over the phone by a grumpy Ski Patrol guy once to go, nope, not dealing with that attitude from you too. I'm pretty sure one of my coworkers and I called and got the same guy since she backed me up every time someone questioned my not calling them. I deal with enough flack. I don't need them to add to things. Back to the main story. I was toward the beginning of helping random rude dude with his lift tickets when the friend came to my window and asked if we had a band-aid or gauze. He specifically said band-aid or gauze. He pointed to his friend a good 10 feet away from the window and under a burned out light. So he was in semi-darkness, about the equivalent of being outside at dusk. He was in literally the only dark spot in the entire lobby. I could barely see his face, let alone details. Thankfully for him, it was later in the season, so I said I'd go look. I thought the guy had cut his lip or something since all I could see was some dark stuff. I'm assuming blood on his lip. I went looking for both a gauze and a band-aid in the back. We only had band-aids, so I grabbed a couple of different sizes and took them back out. I also told my supervisor what was going on just to keep her in the loop, since we technically still weren't supposed to do this. When I got back, the friend was upset about the band-aids. I get it. Your friend's hurt and you're frazzled, but don't take it out on me, especially since you weren't clear. Once he finally told me the extent of the injury, that he was bleeding from inside his mouth, I told him the best thing to do would be to go to the hospital about a mile away. I don't know what it was from, whether a broken or missing tooth, split lip, or what. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that with something like that, Even Ski Patrol sends them to the hospital. Random rude dude got mad at me and started personally attacking me, my character, morals, if I had a heart. Everything was personal. I told him I could do nothing. I'm not a doctor. It's literally not my job and I could get into some serious trouble for doing anything more. I told him not only was I not supposed to call Ski Patrol, but with anything like that, they'd send him to the hospital anyway. He got angrier and demanded to speak to my manager. I said, fine, and got my supervisor. She ended up handling everything he needed. She later told me that he seemed like he was trying to pick a fight and was possibly unstable, just because how out of proportion he blew things. Did I feel bad for the skier? Yes. Could I do anything? No. Do I even know what to do? No, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I have no idea what to do except to get gauze and help with the bleeding, which he didn't have, and go to the hospital. Seriously, people, just go to medical professionals for your medical emergencies. What is a salesperson supposed to do for you? Oh, that poor person, getting yelled at for doing their job. What is it with these entitled people? But you guys should definitely know basic first aid. It's, very useful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.